I'm going to go ahead and start the recording. And is this on? Should be. It is. All right. Welcome, welcome, everybody, to Boundary Mastery and Emotional Freedom. I am so grateful you all are here and have taken the time out of your day to join. I am Jennifer, and I am a mother living on the Big Island of Hawaii. I'm also a holistic life coach. And I have lived on the Big Island for about 20 years now, almost, coming from California originally. And when I started or decided I wanted to move to Hawaii, I had this vision that everybody in Hawaii had it better. So I won't lie, it's pretty great here. We've got beautiful weather, beautiful ocean, nature. There's a lot to experience, and it's a really beautiful, healing place. And I'm very honored to have raised my son, who's almost grown up at this point. He's 17. Um, and, through this experience of living in Hawaii, I assumed that life would just be perfect. And I had this ideal that life would be perfect. I'm going to move to Hawaii, and, there shouldn't be any trouble or issues or problems because people in Hawaii don't have any problems. So that was farthest from the truth. And I was brought here to do a lot of healing. And, every single one of us on this workshop, is probably here because they're dedicated to their personal growth and healing journey. And as we know, it's not always a smooth journey. Okay, it comes with a lot of ups and downs, and a few steps backwards, and a few steps forward. And there's some beautiful, really amazing moments, and some really hard moments that we have to do a lot of work around. So for me, that's what I noticed. And I became a single mother after a few years and had to survive here in one of the most expensive places in the country. And it was not easy. And I pushed myself hard. There was a lot of pushing, and there was a lot of um, just constantly trying to push and force myself and make ends meet, which, as a single mother, for some of you who are or have experienced that, it's not easy. There was a lot of emotional issues I was working through as well, and then physical issues on top of that. And I got to a place where I was really desperate and seeking for help. And I thought everybody out there would have the answers. So I was constantly looking for answers, looking for that one healer that could just, you know, heal me and cure me and make my life better. And what I discovered was an incredible program where I jumped into. It was a 2.5 year healing program, intuitive healing program, in fact. And I got to learn the art of intuitive readings and clairvoyant readings. And through that, it was much more than just psychic readings. Some people call them psychics. It was much deeper than that. I discovered the root to a lot of my issues, a lot of my challenges, and why I was stuck, why I was anxious, why I was depressed, why my life just wasn't what I had hoped, why it wasn't working out for me. And I took that journey into that program, and as I came out of that program, I discovered so much about myself. I got to really understand myself at the deepest core and understand where my patterns, where my beliefs came from, why I was so stuck emotionally, and why things just felt really, really hard. And through that became a beautiful journey of self-discovery and healing. And through that allowed me to jump into down the line a coaching program, which is what I knew I wanted to do. I decided it was either going for the graduate degree to become a therapist or coaching. And I decided to start with coaching, the easier, softer route, but so incredibly rewarding. And through this experience of being guided to help other people on their journey, I discovered boundaries. And I don't think I just stumbled upon it. I started noticing the more healing I started to do on myself and my world, I started noticing the less I would settle. And the less I would settle, the more I started noticing these patterns and dynamics. And I stopped feeling like life was happening to me, but more for me. And so I started looking at each and every obstacle in my life as an opportunity for growth. And if you ladies are here on this call, once again, you probably many of you know what I mean. I can see any hands. Who knows what I mean when I say opportunities for growth, right? We begin to see life like opportunities for growth when things don't work out, when things feel hard, when they feel frustrating, when we think we don't get what we need or want in certain aspects. And what I started seeing was a continual pattern of boundaries being shown to me or lack of boundaries. And this showed up in many areas with my family, direct family, my mother, my father. And I started noticing myself saying yes when I wanted to say no and giving in, especially to family. Can anybody, relate to that? Saying yes when you really just want to stay home, when you really just want to relax, and then getting frustrated, right? That frustration that builds and shows up when we give in, when we really don't want to. And we're going to be talking about all of this, where it comes from, the root to all of this, and how to move through it and past it. But I started seeing these patterns and noticing how hard I was pushing myself to please other people and how much I was betraying myself as that was occurring. And I would, constantly, give in to other people's requests. And I was a perpetual people pleaser. And I didn't know that about myself until recently and started hearing that phrase, people pleaser. And I didn't really know what it meant. And I finally started identifying with that. And I'm not all about labels, but I'm like, you know what? I think I've got that people pleaser thing. And how do we work on that? So I had to do some really hard work on myself and to have learned how to have some really difficult conversations. And a lot of it was trial and error. And a lot of it was like, oh God, I said this and I think I offended them, and having to feel like I had to make up for that and apologize for that. Can anybody relate with trying to like set boundaries and then apologizing later if you notice somebody's upset with you? Can thumbs up if you want or put anything in the chat. You are welcome. I'm going to be checking the chat periodically as we're going through this workshop. But that was a lot of the case for me. You know, I was always just saying yes, wanting to say no. And it came down to what really got me here was I had a great coaching session and a wonderful coach. And this coach of mine was a social worker. So she was a licensed therapist, social worker, and also a life coach. So the best of both worlds, in my opinion. And we did a coaching session one day on the fact that I had not gone on a vacation in 10 years and trying to get to why that was. And we did a lot of exploring. And what it came down to was being afraid to ask my former husband, my son's father, to see if he is able to watch our son for 3 extra days out of the week. And that's what it came down to. And why was I so afraid? Well, he wasn't the easiest person to talk to. He wasn't the easiest person to ask for favors from. He wasn't the easiest person to have difficult or important conversations with. And so I noticed that I would shy away from these conversations because it was hard, right? Having to talk to people who are a little impatient, who maybe will fly off the handle sometimes, or who are just really stubborn, makes our job really hard as women and as those really trying to get our needs met and ask for favors or stand tall to what is important. So that was what I discovered, was that I felt a little bit guilty. I was afraid of his response. And once I was able to work through the guilt, which we're going to talk about the 3 emotions that tend to hold us back, once I was able to work through that, what I noticed was that I was like, I was free. I was like, oh my God, what am I so afraid of? What am I walking through my life feeling so guilty about? I deserve this vacation and I don't have to ask for permission. So what it looked like was, I think it was about a week later, I finally decided to get very strong and declare I'm going on a vacation in 4 months. Now I didn't just drop it in his lap, in a day's notice. I said, in 4 months, I'm leaving on a vacation and I'm going to need you to watch Cameron on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I just wanted to give you a heads up. And it was okay. And there's some people we get to ask permission from, those who are really easy. And we're going to talk about how to create boundaries with those who are easier to work with and those who are not easier to work with. So sometimes it looks like asking for permission, which is what we're going to talk about in today's workshop, how to request and ask somebody for something that means that's important to you without becoming demanding or abrasive. And then sometimes it's going to look like really just stating what needs to happen for ourselves. So we get to kind of play with both ideas around this. So I finally got to take that vacation and I started taking many more after that. And I was freed. It was this incredible freedom that came with that. So here I am teaching boundaries, talking about boundaries. I have a boundary course, which I'm going to get into a little bit later in our workshop, talk about what that includes and what we will work on and all the different ways that we can master our boundaries through that and get support while doing it. So I would love to hear a little bit about whoever would like to share, maybe sharing what brought you to this workshop today. If you'd like to take yourself off mute, you can. If you'd rather put it in the chat and that feels more comfortable for you, then you're more than welcome to share, where you're from and what area around boundaries you feel like you need the most support with, where you feel stuck. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm in Chicago, and you might notice there's still sunlight behind me because it's still light here.
Yeah.
But I would say for me, I work with youth, and a lot of times I put all of my effort into working with youth, and then I don't set the boundaries for my personal health and my personal time. So that's one of the boundaries I definitely need to be working on.
Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, it's tricky. When you're working with young kids and they require a lot. And sometimes we do need to create those boundaries so we can have our time and space back that's all ours. So yeah, I'm glad to share this time with you. Thanks for showing up. Yeah. Anybody else want to share a little bit about what area and boundaries they want to work in? Now, there's different areas. For some people, it's parents. Some people, it's our kids. Kids are tricky, especially, the younger ones as well as the older ones, and they get to be quite smart as they get older. And they can talk themselves or us into or out of a lot of different things. And it gets to be even more hard as they get older and smarter and wiser. Sometimes it's employers, people in our work industry, coworkers. Sometimes it's our coworkers, so we always have that. There's always that one coworker that we may butt heads with or feel a little bit of conflict with, or steps on our toes or rubs us the wrong way, or isn't really respectful. Sometimes it's in our own business. I have my own business and I know I definitely had to work on boundaries in my own business around the times I'll answer the phone, around, agreements and people not showing up to client calls or their sessions and having to have those difficult conversations. Sometimes it's around a few different things, maybe just the amount of time I'm willing to spend in between sessions with somebody as they're going through a challenge. And we get to learn this the hard way or the growth producing way, I'll say, and we wouldn't really know what we don't know until we know it. And sometimes boundaries come up as like, oh, okay, this is something I can work on for next time. Like the last time I jumped on that phone call in the middle of dinner and it took 30 minutes and I thought it would take 5. Or the last time I said, yeah, I have 5 minutes for you. Feel free to share what's on your mind. And you realized it took up an hour and you were running late to your next appointment. There's so many different areas in which boundaries can affect, and we're going to talk about those. So maybe you guys are here today if you are tired of giving in to others, tired of feeling like a villain if you do give in to others, tired of maybe feeling like the bad guy. Maybe you've been told, you're asking too much, you're too demanding, you're too sensitive, you're too opinionated. A lot of times as women, we get that depending on our family system. Many of us um, possibly are a little bit unique in our family system. If we're doing the work on ourselves, not every one of us comes from a family system that is doing the work. And so a lot of our families may not understand the work we're doing. They may not understand our boundaries. They may look at us like we're crazy or think of us like we're selfish because we need more downtime, more quiet time, more alone time, you know? And we get to break the mold. We get to, break these stigmas that have been around for generations, that have been, a lot of these societal structures of feeling like we have to be the good girl, right? To appease people, to say yes, to always accommodate, to always smile, to always be there for people when they need us. And it's exhausting us. It's exhausting us. And we're running around ragged, standing on our head so the world can be okay. And we don't have to do it anymore. So that's the good news, is we really do have the key to our happiness and the key to our freedom when we can move past some of these, areas within ourselves that tend to hold us back, that I'm going to be getting into. So maybe it's the home life that feels a little bit of a struggle. Maybe it's the partner, the husband. Maybe it's the wife. Maybe it's the guy at the grocery store that wants to tell you his life story every time you see him. That's my issue. Somebody stopping you in the middle of the street and you ask, how are you? And as compassionate hearts, we will probably tend to get a lot of that. Maybe some of you are already healers, therapists, coaches, or just very empathetic, loving beings. And that's a beautiful thing. But we need to guard and preserve our energy when that's the case, because we're going to find people who will want to share a lot, who are needing that compassionate pillow. And sometimes we can be there for people in that capacity. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes it's considered a session if we are. And getting to decide on what feels good for us. So, sometimes we're afraid if we say no to something, it's an opportunity we're going to be missing out. Maybe it's missing out in business. Maybe it's financially missing out. If I don't take this call in business, maybe I'll never, I won't get another one. I've got to grab this next call. I got to see this next appointment. And I see a lot of women and men who are constantly crunching in their schedule due to this fear of missing out. Maybe it's missing out of a friendship. If I say no to going out to this event, maybe, they won't want to be friends with me. They'll think I'm selfish. They won't ask me. So there's a lot riding on it. And we're going to talk about those emotions here soon that really tend to get in our way and prevent us from speaking up. So where does this pattern come from? Who here feels pretty certain they know where this pattern of people pleasing or boundaries comes from?
Yeah.
Amanda. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I've done quite a lot of work, Jennifer, and within my family, I was the one who would show up and was the reliable one. And I realized that I was trying to compensate. It was always the fact that they were in a tricky place or something, or they'd made a decision. So I would be the one who would compensate. And then if I didn't do that, I had a huge fear of abandonment, that I'd be rejected. And so the two things, I've kind of worked these two things out, that in my family, I need to make things better for them. And yet the rejection comes when they're really not interested in what I could offer them. And usually it's that part has been when I did a training as a therapist. And I understand that, you can't impose, but also the feeling was if I didn't help, there was also this underlying thing that if I didn't show up, I would be kind of rejected and abandoned. So I've worked quite hard on that. Now I don't feel that so much at all, that I can stand in my own truth. But
Mm,
I didn't have any boundaries at all within
yeah,
my family,
yeah.
and I love them dearly, but I was the odd one out as well, the sensitivity, the you should go out more, but actually, why aren't you going out a lot? Because when you are out in the world, just normally doing jobs and stuff, I need this real downtime a lot. I need a lot of quiet, alone space.
Mhm.
So I was the odd one out in that respect. You're not going
Mm,
out, you're not living a life, and especially the last 4 years after with the pandemic. And I have
mhm.
really relished these 4 years of just being quiet.
Mm,
And
wonderful.
so I can see where I don't know if that's a common thing of the people pleasing thing coming from needing to
Mm,
date for them because they're in a difficult place. But then that was
doing it.
their choice. And our choices
True.
create our life, don't they?
They sure do. Yeah.
But
Wonderful.
I've learned.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to some respect of sometimes we tend to show up as the rescuers, right?
Mm,
Sometimes the enablers, you know, and sometimes and we have different reasons for doing it, depending on our family system and
mm,
how we had to show up for people wanting the peacekeepers, right? Wanting everything to be okay. So maybe some of us were what's called parentified, right? We had to show up as a parent for our
yeah.
parents. I know that was me for sure. I was almost like the therapist to my mom, who at a very young age would sit me down on her couch. And I remember that, and want to tell me her life story and her issues and her problems. And as children, there's this powerless feeling, a feeling like we need to fix it, even though it's not our job to do that. And then this creates this system and this pattern and dynamic where we grow up, and start, kind of feeling the need to rescue, to fix other people and getting to know what's mine to fix and then what's not mine. And we get to slowly but surely unravel these pieces over time of going, wait, these people are more than capable of taking care of themselves, of figuring out their issues, problems, and I get to step back. And it takes a lot of conscious work and therapy, sometimes, and just a lot of awareness around that. Yeah. Anybody else want to share a little bit about where they feel the root of this pattern came from in their life? And I know this can be a very personal subject for many of us. So there's never pressure with me to share. So yeah, so just even recognizing where it comes from. Ooh, maybe mom, maybe dad, maybe I watched my mom or my dad kind of have do it all for people and she was kind of burnt out. Maybe she was a little more submissive, right? Just noticing the modeling that was showing up for us in our life. So this pattern is it's a big deal, and as much as we see boundary quotes and all these sweet little things, it really, I mean, it can take over our life if we let it. But the good news is that we are here because we're here to change that today. And you're here because you're probably working on that already on some capacity in your life. And this really, they are the keys to our happiness, the ability to say yes when we want, the ability to say no, ability to say not right now, maybe tomorrow. So it's not just about saying no to things, it's also about maybe saying yes to things. What are the opportunities that you'd like to say yes to, have more of and ask for. Maybe it's asking for more support for people. So when I talk about boundaries, I also talk about speaking up. So a lot of us, get to learn how to ask for support and help more. If you become, who here is little Miss Independent and kind of is used to doing things for herself. I know I was as a single mom. I didn't have family around or a husband to help me. I got very used to not asking. And I had to get used to asking for favors. And it was very uncomfortable, and there was like, ooh, is somebody going to show up if I ask, do you mind taking that to the dump because my car's too small to fit the trash in, little things like that. Or can I, borrow your weed whacker, or $30 to get myself through. I mean, times were tight at one point. So I had to ask my boss at one point to borrow money just to get to gas, get to work some days. So learning how to ask without feeling guilty is also important. So I am going to move us through I'm going to share my screen with you guys here and get us to my slides, share a bit more. And then I've got a fun little activity for us as well that we'll be going through. All right. So let me move you guys over if I can. Oh, you don't want to move? There you go. All right. So let's see here. Yep, there we go. So the four powerful ways to create boundaries without feeling guilty is something that I have created on my own, and I brought in a lot of different components to how to create boundaries. So what I've noticed is, first, number one is defining your boundary. What is the boundary I want to even create? A lot of people we talk about these boundaries, but really getting clear on what is the boundary I want to create. Number two is tapping into our feelings and needs. Whoops, I got the S on that. Feelings and needs and our big why. So what are we feeling and what are we needing? What are we feeling, and what are we feeling when our boundary is not met? Are we feeling frustrated because we have a need for our husband to take out the garbage on Mondays, or feeling, maybe feeling left out because we have a need for inclusion. Maybe we're feeling hurt because our partner didn't ask about our day. Maybe we're feeling frustrated because we have a need for more peace and quiet, and our mom or dad is talking our ear off. So, and then defining our big why. Why is this important to us? And once we discover why it's important, things become like we can start putting this together. It's not just, oh, I'm just overwhelmed and I know I need to create boundaries. It's really defining it and kind of honing in on, well, what boundary would I like to create? What is my feeling around this? What is my need? Why is this important to me? And through the program that I've created, we go a few layers deep. So why would be looking like, I'm frustrated because, let's see, okay, I can give you the example of maybe not asking my ex, every time I would talk to him, it would feel like there was pushback. I didn't feel heard. I wasn't feeling heard. I felt dismissed, maybe. Okay. And my need was to feel heard and understood. Why was that important for me? Because for the next who knows how many years, I'm going to have to have a relationship with him because he's the father of my child. And sometimes I'm going to need to ask him to watch our kid a few extra days so I can take a trip, or maybe have a workshop. Why is that important to me? Well, I mean, because it's going to allow me a lot more freedom, because I want to be able to go on vacations more. I want to see the world. Well, why is that important? So if that kind of makes some sense here of getting really deep into, filling into, why is this so important for me? What difference would this make in my life? What opportunities would open up? What would change? What ease would this bring to my life if I could say no to that extra appointment on the schedule? I could actually relax and enjoy dinner at 5 o'clock at night versus 8 o'clock at night. So it's getting clear on why it's important. Emotional regulation, number three. So once we find out our big why, I feel that it's important to bring in this sense of emotional regulation. And what does that mean? So for those of you who are new to that phrase or term, it's feeling like you can manage, the ability to manage your emotions when they come up, and manage emotional triggers and manage stressful events in a way that doesn't have you so reactive. Okay. Because when we're kind of succumbing to these emotions, so maybe the reason why we haven't created the boundary is due to fear, right? We're afraid. We're afraid of how they're going to react, afraid they might say no, afraid they're going to be upset, right? And so when we're locked up in this feeling of fear, what shows up for us, right? How does that affect your life, your mood, your ability to ask for what you want when you're locked up in fear, when you're locked up in shame or guilt, right? When we're kind of pulling around in those feelings, how does that affect us? Okay, so the ability to emotionally regulate. And in my program, I have numerous tools that I've learned and picked up that have been tried and true in my tool basket to really help us feel a lot calmer. And I notice when I bring these in and when my clients bring these in, the boundary doesn't seem as scary. It doesn't seem as big. It doesn't seem as overwhelming. It seems manageable. But we got to get our emotions to a place of like, I feel safe. I feel safe in my body. I feel safe that nothing's going to happen to me. I feel safe that even if you react in that way, I'm still in my autonomy. I still have agency over my emotions, and I'm still going to be okay, even when you're mad, even when you're disappointed. So getting to that place is really, really important. And that takes some time and dedication to our nervous systems because it's as women, especially sensitive women, those can get out of whack very easily. And I know for myself, I'm a highly sensitive. It doesn't take much to, you know, one comment. And I'm like, can anyone relate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I had this just the other day, in fact, was a homeless man came up to where I work. I have another job. I'm a concierge selling activities here on the Big Island. Great job. And I had a homeless man who's definitely has mental illness, but he knows how to push buttons. And he had asked for a business card. They were sitting out there, and I didn't feel comfortable giving him a business card. I don't want this man having my phone number. So he says, "Oh, can I take this piece of paper?" I said, "No." And I didn't justify, argue, defend, or explain myself. And I recognized I didn't have to. And he looked at me and he got very outraged and he started blaming and shaming. You don't belong here. You don't live here. Go back to work. I mean, it was hard. It was hard. And once he walked away, it took me a minute to get myself back together and to come back and choose peace, to choose, where I was before. And I had to do a few different modalities just to get myself back. Some of these might look like breathing. Some of them might look like emotional freedom technique and tapping. And so I took about 5 to 10 minutes, did some slow, deep breathing, and got myself regulated again. And I finally could move through my day. And, a couple years ago, I would have stayed in a place that would have ruined my entire evening, guaranteed. I would have been fussing and frustrated and, cussing under my breath and whoever would listen, right? Can anyone relate to just getting kind of off kilter? Yeah. Yeah. Um, and so the fourth piece around this is expressing our boundary, right? So once we know what our boundary is, the ability to express it and to verbalize it and declare it to whomever we need to create that boundary with. And the fifth part I didn't put on there is practicing. We need to practice this. It's, I'd love to say this is a one and done, but for me, I've really had to work on, sometimes it's mirror work, sometimes it's with a friend. And I've created this boundary course just so people can actually get this opportunity to practice within this realm of like, let's do some role play. Let's recite this so we can feel really calm and confident in a safe environment. So when you do go out there, it's a lot easier. So maybe you've tried speaking up and experienced shame around that. Maybe you feel like you're always overly focused on everybody else's needs, the home, the kids, the partner. Maybe you ruminate on what would happen if you didn't speak up, or excuse me, if you did speak up, what would the repercussions be? Maybe you're afraid to ask for help and you do it all yourself, or you're always busy and you can't slow down and wouldn't even know where to start if you could. Maybe you're just afraid you're going to be missing out. Can anybody here relate to any of these? Oh, there everybody is. Yeah. But anybody, yeah, does anybody feel like they'd like to share a little bit about any of these areas for themselves and what they notice? Oops, whoops, I lost everybody. I lost you all. You're still there?
Yeah, still
We're
here.
all still here. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna go back and just readjust my screen here for everybody. All right, coming back in, want to make sure I didn't. Perfect. Okay, so we had talked about where this pattern comes from and just something to think about, something that we get to explore and take our time with, wondering, oh, I wonder where this pattern started of people pleasing or being afraid to speak up or not speaking up. Did it happen at home? Maybe sometimes in the school system, right? Maybe the last time we gave the wrong answer in fifth grade, and from then on we sat there in the boardroom and didn't feel comfortable raising our hand when the boss was like, "What do you guys think?" And creates a lot of kind of sitting on the sidelines, even though have any of you experienced like wanting to share where you're at or wanting to express yourself more, but just kind of holding back? Can anyone relate to that? Holding that back? Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
I know for myself, that was really hard. There was a lot I wanted to share all the time, and I could feel it bubbling, coming up, and I would notice, I would just always stop myself. There was a lot of insecurity in my life that would prevent me from, what are they going to think if I say my opinion about this, or if everybody else in the room is saying they like the color black, but I really like the color pink, or everybody agrees with, what he's saying, but you don't, and how to kind of look at, how to voice your opinion without feeling like there's going to be repercussions or you're afraid to do it, and how to speak up and master that feeling of being, living in our authenticity, easy for me to say, being able to just share whatever comes up, because there's a true freedom in that, right? Like, who here has ever had that moment where they shared what was on their heart and soul and just felt so free? Yeah,
Yep.
Amanda. Anyone else recall a moment in time where you actually were able to share your life, share what was on your mind, or say, hey, I'm not really agreeing with that over there, or hey, this doesn't work for me, and then noticing how it felt, noticing that freedom? What did you guys notice? Would anyone like to share what you noticed about what it felt like when you did have a moment in time where you could express yourself fully? There's no pressure.
Well, getting that validation that like your experience is um you know real, like from somebody else who's able to validate and um say that what you're going through is it's not eh, fake, like it's a real situation.
Yeah, so hearing like someone validate that what you're feeling and experiencing is real and that it's not something that you're making up, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's normal. It's like other people go through the things, and when you've been invalidated, it made you feel gaslit and minimized, and then you that sticks with you. It's like, well, this person said that I'm crazy, I'm just bipolar or whatever kind of label they want to put on you that is not correct.
Right. Yeah, and that's really hurtful. Yeah, when we've got, people labeling us or name calling from just being able wanting to express yourself. Yeah, absolutely. And so did you notice the last time you did feel validated by somebody? When was that?
Ye- Yeah, well, with my spouse, he's been trying to take accountability, and whenever I say something and he actually says like, "Oh, that's really hard," and uh, you know, like he says that something I'm going through is like not only real and normal, but also painful and stressful and all that. It's like I'm not just, it's not in my head. It's not something that I should be ashamed, like, because I do have problems with self shame, and I don't want to self shame. I want self compassion that, the troubles that I'm dealing with, they aren't easy. I shouldn't be sucking it up and um, pretending that I live a perfect life.
Right. And I'm so glad to hear. I know we've been talking over the course of some time now, but I'm relieved to hear that you're actually getting some compassionate empathy and validation for where things are. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah,
It's
anybody?
great.
Yeah,
Oh, I was gonna say, like, I do know that I figured out that it's codependency, like that I struggle with needing him to do or being either like, doing things for him or feeling like we're connected constantly or some like
mhm,
codependency. And I thought he was a narcissist because he wouldn't show accountability, but it does, when someone can start to open up and feel comfortable to be accountable and validate, I think that, you know I think that, maybe they're not a narcissist or maybe they have traits, but things can change if you both can have the emotional safety.
absolutely. Emotional safety is so much. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Angela. Yeah. Anybody else have experience of a time where they felt validated recently or in the past, where they were able to express themselves and it just felt like a really big relief? I'm wanting to make sure I'm not missing anybody here as my screen. Yeah. Um,
I
yeah.
completely agree with Angela. I think I've just been having this conversation with my brother. Actually, we've been talking about vulnerability and where you're able to actually share, your feelings and your emotions, and it's all like Angela said, it's all back to that safe space, whether or not someone has created that for you, whether or not you feel from history that that person is going to validate you, and they support you. So, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Thanks for, yeah, sharing that as well. And it's true. I mean, when we can feel safe, everything changes. We don't have to walk on eggshells anymore when we're feeling safe and validated. And it's a beautiful thing when we get that in our world. And some of us have it and some of us get to choose it. Some of us get to choose it. So, we may not have it in our direct family system, and we may. And then other times we get to choose friendships that bring those in. They call, like the chosen family, so to speak. So maybe we don't have that, growing up, but we can actually begin to create that and notice when we have these friendships or people coming into our lives. Do I feel heard? Do I feel seen? Am I able to share? Do I feel validated? And noticing that, or am I attracted to what's familiar. And, that's a whole nother subject we could get into, because we're creatures of habit. We're attracted to what's familiar, but we also get to expand on that and recognize just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's healthy, and we get to choose things that feel good for us today because we do deserve it. And the more we can recognize that and work on ourselves, the more we're going to start bringing in these, wonderful people and those who we do feel a lot safer around. And life feels a lot better when we can, be around safe people. And then the boundary work is just going to be a lot easier. It'll be once in a while I had to, stand up for myself with the guy at the gas station, or, my server with the burnt hamburger. It's not going to be all the time everywhere. Right. So, yeah, whoops, no, that's not what I wanted to bring in. Bringing up things that I'm not wanting to bring up. Okay, so let me get back in. So there are different types of boundaries that we have. I want to see if I can, there we go. I wanted to make sure I could push you guys over there, and I want to block you guys from what this is, but there's physical boundaries that could look like our personal space. How often we want physical contact. Maybe that's affection in our partnerships, relationships, hugging. Maybe there's our husband who is touchy feely and always wanting to hold our hand, or maybe it's the other partner in the relationship. And maybe it's how close in proximity somebody stands to you at a grocery store. I have a big thing with that. People tend to like to stand on top of me. And I used to be really kind of a little bit uncomfortable with that, especially during times of COVID. That part made me feel really uncomfortable. And I would get it a lot, people intruding in my boundaries. And there's been a few times that I have literally said, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love a little more space. I'd love a little more space here. And we get to ask for that, and noticing, oh, now my space is freed up. Now I can feel a little more comfortable. I got some elbow room. I like my elbow room. Maybe it's emotional, expressing yourself, taking on the emotions of others. Maybe it's a time when somebody, you know, shares a lot or dumps on you without permission. I'm all about permission. And the more we can, I feel like the more boundary work we do with ourselves, the more we get to ask people permission. And it's nice when we get permission asked for us instead of just assuming people will be there for us. Maybe that looks like a conversation. Maybe you're going through a lot, and we've all been there. So just because we're talking about boundaries from other people, we also get to be the ones to practice these as well. So maybe it's a friend of ours that says, I'm right about to put my kids to bed, or I don't have time to talk to you about your issue right now, but maybe tomorrow. And, how is our ability to handle when other people put boundaries down with us, right? If somebody says, not right now, maybe tomorrow, or nope, sorry, my day is really busy, sweetie. I'm not going to be able to run that extra errand for you, and then we get to learn how to deal with, okay, well, then I'm going to have to figure out how to do this on my own and soothe myself, and vice versa. There was a moment where I think not too long ago, somebody in the parking lot, this is somebody I tend to run into here and there. And usually every time I ask how she's doing, it's a lot of complaining and she definitely opens up. And it's always in the parking lot of the grocery store. And at that time, my son was younger and I was like trying to get groceries, and then get back to him so I could cook dinner. And I was a working mom. And I noticed how uncomfortable it would make me when people would overshare or tell me things that were a little too personal. And I noticed how much I really needed permission from that. And then I would actually have to start creating boundaries around, I would love to hear more about that, but I don't have the time right now. And I really hope and wish the best for you. And I hope you find the support that you're looking for to get through that. So there's things that we can say to people that don't have to be rude or offensive or brush people off. Like we get to say, not right now, in a really loving way. I would love to hear you, but I don't have the time right now. Maybe we can chat in a few days. Text me and I can, send you my calendar, or I'll let you know what some good times would be so I can be more present with you, right? Maybe it's around time on the phone, how you allocate your time. Maybe it's not answering the phone during dinner or after 8 o'clock at night or before 8 o'clock in the morning, or how much time you spend on the phone. Maybe your mom likes to take a lot of time up, right? Your brother, so another boundary would be material. So around our belongings and money. Do you lend money out to people? And is that comfortable for you? And have you lent money out and not received it back? So how to create boundaries around our material possessions can be really important too. Then there's intellectual boundaries. What are you comfortable talking about? Maybe you're not comfortable talking about politics. Maybe you're not comfortable talking about the way you raise your children, or the choices in your life, or that boundary workshop that you're showing up to, why you can't show up to dinner. So all of these different areas. So ladies, which of these boundaries do you find you could use a little work with? And which boundary do you feel like you have down? Anybody want to share? And you can just unmute if you'd like. I'm not able to see the chat at this point, but oh, there I am. Yeah. So yeah, we get to kind of look at all of these different types of boundaries. Sorry about the rooster in the background. For any of you that can hear him, they get loud. All right, so we're going to move on. We're moving on into the 3 emotions of people pleasing, or the 3 emotions that prevent us from creating boundaries. So if you don't identify or like that word people pleasing, then you don't have to identify it with it. I just put it up here because a lot of times people pleasing tendencies will show up. So we don't have to call ourselves a people pleaser, but maybe people pleasing tendencies tend to show up. So one of the emotions that keep us stuck is fear. Afraid to say no because. I'm afraid to say no because. What am I afraid of? Right? Maybe I'm afraid to say no because if I say I can't work on Friday, my boss will ask somebody else and I'll get demoted. Maybe I'm afraid to, stay home and say, no, I can't go to that show or concert with you. And I'm afraid my friend will be mad. Maybe I'm afraid if somebody coming back in. Maybe I'm afraid if I say that I don't like the way you're talking to me, that, it's going to end up in a big argument. Maybe if I'm afraid to say to my child, I need you to pick up your room. It's looking disastrous, then it's going to, again, you're going to have to deal with this like back and forth. So the fear. And noticing, where do you notice that for yourself? So we can even just take a minute now and notice the last time I was afraid to speak up, state a boundary, or did speak up. Where did I notice that physiological response in my body? I notice for me, sometimes fear tends to show up in the chest and also in the stomach. And what do you notice about that? Is there a spot in your body that you tend to notice you hold fear?
I end up with anxiety in my chest.
Chest, yeah. Yeah, anxiety, definitely. Yeah, I feel like the chest is common. It's a common spot. Yeah. Anybody else notice where they hold their fear when they're afraid to say what's on their mind? What part of their body?
I get tension headaches, like in the back of my neck. I hold a lot of tension there.
Yeah. Yeah, I notice. Yeah, that can be really hard, really painful, right? I tend to be a teeth grinder, so I can relate to that.
Me too. Me too.
You too.
Yep.
Me too.
I know, right? All of this trying to just let out our stress in our sleep, and we let it out on our poor jaw, and sometimes it affects the neck muscles, the head, all of that. So yeah, some great things to be aware of. And maybe we can bring in some, you know, just healing somatic exercises to do before bed. Processing our emotions is helpful. Yeah, did somebody want to share? Oh, somebody keeps logging off and on. Probably not the greatest reception, which happens. Guilt. So guilt's the other emotion. If I say no, if I feel, you feel bad, right? So maybe you do say
Yep.
no. You have said no, and you feel bad. I feel guilty. And so, looking at our beliefs around that, what beliefs am I holding? What do I do? What do I make it mean about myself if I have to say no to you? Or if I have to, create this clearly defined boundary, what do I make it mean about myself? And noticing that. It mean, maybe sometimes it might look like, no, I'm not a good mom. I'm a selfish friend. I'm not a good partner. Yeah. It's amazing in the blink of an eye and just seconds how it shows up as a belief. Most of us we're not even aware of it. I wasn't even aware of these beliefs until I started doing this work on myself. And I had, and started doing some coaching around it. My beliefs, what do you mean? I feel bad. Well, there's a belief instilled there. What's the belief? And when we can unravel these beliefs and start bringing in these new belief systems and questioning those beliefs, is that true? Or is this something that's just been passed down from generations? Have I been told I'm bad, I'm selfish, I'm mean, I'm too much? Well, we absorb those beliefs from the time we're born till about age 7. Our personality is pretty well defined. Now, it doesn't mean we can't rewire these subconscious programming. That's what all this self-development work is for. We do have the ability, and it takes time and conscious effort to go, there I go again, telling myself I'm selfish because I had to jump off the phone. Ooh, where do I notice that in my body? Oh, I notice that in my stomach. All right, so what can I do to soothe myself through that? And that's where we get to really stay and get settled with ourselves, get still with ourselves. And that's where this work really comes in handy. The emotional regulation work. Okay, I'm feeling some guilt. What tool can I bring in at this time so I can work through this? What can I tell myself this time? Okay, I have that new belief that I'm working on. All right, so we're going to go ahead and, like a mantra, ladies. And over time, once we do this enough, our default is going to be the new belief. You might notice it for a minute. The guilt is still going to show up because we're not robots, right? The fear might still show up, but whether you're carrying it for 30 minutes or 6 hours is the difference. And that's what I've noticed, is that the more we can work on ourselves and do this work, the quicker the beliefs will shift, the quicker the emotions we can soothe our emotions around this. Okay. And then there's shame. Shame's the other one. Shame's a biggie. Shame's a biggie. A lot of times I'll save this feeling of shame for the therapist. I notice, I'm not a licensed therapist, and though I do and am able to work on shame, it's usually a more vulnerable part of ourselves. If the shame is deep enough and big enough, then I always recommend, seeking out a therapist to really, get down to that core. Because there's a lot of times shame is carried, in a very, for those of you familiar with a process called internal family systems, this was developed by an incredible therapist named Richard Schwartz, who talked about these different parts of ourself that show up as protectors, controllers, managers, usually the part of ourself that's trying to keep us safe. And they run and dictate our lives. And so we have a whole family of people living inside of us. We're not multiple personality, though it may feel like it sometimes, right? We've got maybe the I'm blanking now. You know, the type A, maybe it's the controlling part, maybe it's the irrational part, maybe it's the insecure part. So we have all these different parts of ourselves that tend to show up in our lives. And a lot of times we're covering up for this maybe more younger, more vulnerable part of ourselves that tells us maybe we're wrong and maybe we were told that. So doing some healing work around, you know, we can even do it with inner child work is really helpful. If you've never done inner child work, I highly recommend it. If you feel safe enough to go there and begin to connect in with that part of yourself that feels like she doesn't deserve to have a say so, you know, at the table, who is afraid, and have a conversation with her. You know, sit in meditation, ask her, what are you wanting? What are you needing that you never got growing up? And this is very beautiful work, very tender, very beautiful work. And when we can connect with, oh, hello, sweetheart. When we can connect with those tender parts of ourselves, you know, we can get some answers and some healing and a resolve. When that little girl in us can feel heard and seen and loved and cared for, then some beautiful, beautiful shifts can occur through that. And that is what I tend to do in my one-on-one coaching with my clients, is we go to that place of looking at the different parts of ourselves and doing that deeper healing work for those who feel comfortable to do that, and, you know, connecting within. And I'm grateful for this work because there's a lot of healing that's shown up. Anybody here ever tried the inner healing or inner child work on themselves before?
Yeah.
No? Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah, Amanda. Yeah, it's beautiful work.
So, and I found a photograph of myself when I was 7. And I actually spoke to my 7-year-old and said, I'm sorry for the choices I made that made life difficult for you, but we're okay now.
Mm,
It was really powerful
beautiful.
working with a photo of my 7-year-old self.
Beautiful. Oh, I'm sure that must have been an amazing moment for her to feel like she received this amends from you. And then she knows and she can feel safe that you've got her. You're carrying her through.
Yeah.
It's some very beautiful, tender work. And for those of you interested in it, you can feel free to reach out to me. And I'm going to put my link in the chat at the very end. But I'd be happy to talk more about this work. Oh. Yeah, bringing in that self-compassion can make all the difference in the world. And it's the difference between, you know, feeling free and liberated versus criticizing ourselves, right? And being stuck in these emotions. And it's a big game changer. And yeah, lots of healing that can come out of that. So let's see here. I'm going to move on to our feelings and needs. So our feelings and needs are really important to connect within. You know, how are we feeling and what are we needing? So our feelings and needs help us to not feel as overwhelmed from other people's requests and expectations, helps us to take better care of ourselves, to know when it feels okay to give or receive or not give or receive, right? When we're checking in with ourselves, I'm feeling, you know, if somebody asks you, can you, you know, run to the store at 8 o'clock at night? I'm feeling a bit tired because I have a need to rest. So there's a feeling and need right there, right? And we get to check in with ourselves. We get to pause, ladies. We forget to do that sometimes. I know I did as a busy woman. We forget to pause. Say, I'm going to need a minute. You know, we don't always have to jump into decision making if we don't feel that it's the right time or place. We get to say, yeah, let me get back to you tomorrow. And I'll let you know. You know, a lot of times I have a good friend of mine who's a school psychologist. She's not on the call today, but we talk about this subject in depth. And, you know, I think she had asked me if I wanted to go for a walk the other day. And I was feeling a little bit tired. And I said, you know what? I'm going to check in with my energy and I'll get back to you tomorrow. And she's like, oh my God, I love that. I'm using that. So you are free to use that. It just kind of came to me. I'm going to check in. We get to check in with ourselves. You know, we get to not always overcommit. say yes just because we're so used to or accustomed to it. We get to check in with ourselves. We do have that right. So how do I determine if I should say yes or no? If something is working for me, not working for me? Sometimes I'll say to people, if fear wasn't the primary agent driving me, what would I choose for myself? If I didn't feel afraid to say no to this request, what would I choose for myself instead? What would I want to do if I wasn't sitting in fear? And if fear is not stopping you, then you get to choose. So saying yes to somebody else, if that's going to deplete you emotionally, physically, or mentally, if I say yes to this request, am I going to be bitter tomorrow? Right? Am I going to wish I hadn't? Am I going to be sitting there, you know, mulling it over for 2 hours, going, shoot, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Yeah, Jen, I'm noticing your hand up. Did you want to say something or share about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I do. I don't know how to put the hand down. Actually, there.
Okay,
Okay, lower hand. Okay,
there you
yeah,
go.
I do.
Mhm,
Like for me, like I'll give an example. This hasn't like quite happened yet, but at work, I'm a part-timer, and so we have to try to ask other team members for favors if they can have off, say during a Saturday or something like that, to switch shifts. And like if somebody had something like important or they wanted to do, I wouldn't mind doing it because I want to give, but I haven't had the time or chance to do it. Like I had something else planned or whatever. So, I mean, even if it did make me tired, like it makes me feel good that I helped somebody out. So I guess that's a
mhm,
different, energy coming from
mhm,
that. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we get to say, hey, even if I am a little tired, is the benefit
Yeah.
going to outweigh the cost? Is my feeling of fulfillment going to outweigh my fatigue? Sometimes we can kind of decide, or is this,
Right.
or yeah, we get to
It's not
decide that.
always right. It's not always just what I feel in the moment,
Hmm.
but yeah, or what I think is fair, or
Hmm.
sometimes somebody needs help, and yeah, so okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with
Maybe.
you there. Yeah. And as women, a lot of times we do want to help other people. And sometimes it's not always convenient when we say yes. We're not going to always feel 100% vital or energized. And it's still, somebody's stuck at the gas station or, needs help getting, picking up their car from the shop. And it's not always going to be convenient. And I recognize, it's not always black and white sometimes. But bringing in these ideas, maybe more often is definitely helpful too. So how do I
Right.
determine if I'm going to say yes or no? So then I put here, if you feel like it's going to deplete you, emotionally, physically, mentally, and you get to decide that. You get to play with that. Sometimes it is like, okay, I'm going to say yes. I remember when I first started this work, I would just, I had to test things out because I didn't know. I didn't know if it would be too much. Let me say yes to going out later, or let me say yes to this. And let me push through feeling tired. I woke up not feeling well. So I'm going to say yes and I'm going to go to work. And if I feel like this is manageable, this will be good. This will be good information next time. If I feel that I am exhausted and I showed up to work because I felt obligated, that's going to also be great information for me next time. Right. And it's just, I mean, I love playing with this because we get to play around. Let me try this out. I may not know. I may not know how I'm going to be affected. Um, and then connecting with our feelings and needs. So when we connect with our feelings and needs, there's a few ways we can do this. One of the ways I love to connect is just to begin to close my eyes. And we can even just do this now. Closing your eyes and taking a nice slow deep breath, putting your hand on your heart. And you can ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? and letting your heart or your body provide the answer. I'm feeling hopeful. I'm feeling excited. And another way is to, imagine your feet on the ground, and you can picture yourself as a tree, nice grounded tree. Any tree that you wish. It can be an oak tree, maple, apple, aspen, one of your favorite trees. And you can imagine yourself grounding into the center of the earth, past all of the layers, and just feeling the steadiness and sturdiness of this tree. Notice if you feel a little bit more grounded, less anxious. And you can even imagine roots extending downward into the earth. And just begin to breathe in energy from the earth into these roots, into your body. You can picture what energy you would like to bring in. Maybe it's green, maybe it's yellow or brown. And imagine just bringing this energy down from the bottoms of your feet or your roots into your body, swirling around and just soothing any places that feel anxious, overwhelmed, tight, or tense. And really using your imagination here, you can just picture this energy, absorbing like a magnet any emotions that you feel are hindering you or weighing you down, any fear or anxiety. Bringing this color and energy through your neck, your back muscles, your shoulders, where we hold so much tension, back of our head. Just with our mind alone, imagine bringing in the sense of ease and soft relaxation, safety. You can picture whatever color, whatever emotion you'd like through this exercise. And take a nice slow deep breath in and out. Now placing your hand on your heart. And just notice if anything shifted, if your body's feeling more relaxed, and where you're at. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Hopefully you're feeling a little more relaxed after that. I'm not sure if I put everybody to sleep. Sometimes that happens. It's been known to happen a few times, but yeah, it's just a nice way to reset and to calm our nervous system. That was one of the fun tools I got to learn in intuitive program. Then I started creating my own little energy work meditations, and we can do this with ourselves. There's no right or wrong way to run our energy or to, whatever we want to bring in through our imagination. Sometimes something easy to do is just, how do I want to feel? And then I'll imagine a color that represents that feeling. I want to feel more joyful. Maybe bringing in orange would be fun. Playing around with that, running our energy with orange for 5 or 10 minutes. So it's always a nice little exercise that we get to come back to. How's everybody feeling? Relaxed? Okay, good. Right. So that exercise comes in nice and handy when it comes to outcomes. Okay. Oops. Oh, where did that go? There we go. All right. So attachment to outcomes. This is the fun one, right? depending on who you're working with, who you're talking to, who you're having to create the boundary with. If this is a friend, this is going to be easy breezy. Depending on how easygoing your friend is. I'm talking here about people that are a little bit harder to work with, harder to deal with, harder to express yourself with. That can be anybody. It can be somebody who's just maybe a little different than you, and you're recognizing, okay, if I'm going to create a boundary with this person, I may have my work cut out for me, and that's okay. But before we attach ourselves to the outcome of the reaction, this is something fun I always used to would ask myself, is I would consider the source. And I would just say this to myself, I'm considering the source, right? So whoever's the person that I am about to create this boundary with, and whatever the reaction is going to be, maybe I'm afraid of their judgment, is the person who's about to judge me, is this somebody who I respect? Is this somebody I look up to? Is this somebody I feel safe around? Is this somebody I would come to for advice? Is somebody that is supportive, encouraging, uplifting? Somebody, maybe you're asking somebody, if it's around success, is this somebody who's successful? Before I take advice from somebody, before I take business advice from somebody, is this somebody who's successful? Considering the source. Or is this somebody who really struggles with their own emotions, who's really impatient, who's judgmental, who's critical? Where does this person live their life from, when dealing with a little bit more, difficult people, or you'd use word toxic people, we'll just say unconscious, unconscious people. Are they living their life from a place of compassion, understanding, and patience? And do they show up in that way to everybody, for everybody? Because chances are they probably don't, if we're, afraid of their judgment. But just recognizing, before I take whatever they say, we're not easy for me to say. I think that grounding exercise really just like, before I take on what this person may or may not say to me, just really asking ourselves to consider the source before we take it in. And there's an exercise that I like to do. It's around, imagining a bubble. So if there's a person in your life that you notice is a little bit more judgmental, maybe this is somebody you're going to want to create the boundary with, and we're going to create our boundary right after this. But is this somebody that I want to create, somebody who's a little bit more judgmental, or I'm a little more afraid of, a little bit, just, it's going to be a little more difficult, right? We all know those people. There's always one person who is a little bit more difficult. Okay, so I like to imagine, I don't know if you've ever seen those big thick balloons. I don't know if they're helium balloons, but remember those balloons that are like kind of bouncy that you could like blow up from the like toy store? I don't know. I just remember these really thick balloons, right? And imagining that you were secluded with this balloon, or protected with this balloon, and this is your own safe balloon. Now you could imagine this to be just a sphere of light, whatever feels safe to you. And you can imagine the other person with their own, I like to say, like suitcase, luggage, right? They got their own luggage. And in that luggage is filled with all of their past experiences, and literally luggage, beliefs, thoughts, feelings of life, judgments, all their stuff. That's theirs because it's in their suitcase. So they're having this in suitcase, right? And maybe they're trying to unload and give you some of their old beliefs, and they're trying to hand off some of their judgments to you, or criticism, and maybe it's gaslighting. And before you decide to take that on and put it in your own suitcase, consider the source. Is this somebody that I really respect? And asking yourself, do I want to take on, do I want to believe? And giving yourself that buffer and that choice. Before I allow this to come into my sphere, to come into my space, to come into my belief system, to trigger my nervous system, do I wholeheartedly believe this is true? You know, is this true? Is this really the truth of who I am? Am I really selfish? Am I really too much? Am I really too this? You know, am I really hard to deal with? Or is this their stuff? So you can see them. And sometimes a fun little exercise I even like to do is expand on that, seeing them as like a pouty little child that is just trying to get their way or that's just frustrated. You know, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to manage their emotions. So they're throwing them at you because you're safe, right? A lot of times those who project onto others, you know, they do it in a way, it's usually sometimes it's our kids, our husband, our wife, a partner. We're safe. We're safe. They know nothing's going to happen. They know nothing's going to happen. Ah, there's my chat. I'm going to, let's see here. Jen says, yeah, somebody thinking of writing a letter, and we can definitely do that. Yeah, if it feels safer to do that, depending on who you're, you know, if it feels safer to write a letter versus this, you know, one-on-one encounter. And I always say, when it comes to difficult people, you know, when to do so. There's a saying in a 12-step community, you know, when it comes to making amends, but I love this last part of the phrase. It says, except when to do so would injure um, them or others, I believe, or yourself or others. Okay. So, you know, always bearing in mind that I'm not asking you guys, you know, if you are in any type of a heated or abusive situation, to please seek outside counsel, advice from a therapist or communities or outreach for that. Okay. So I want to let you guys know I'm not condoning you guys to stand up to bullies who may, um, you know, be a little bit more abusive. Okay. And if you find yourself in a situation like that, to really, you know, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. So I really want to define that one. But for all others that are just a little bit stubborn, a little bit hard to manage, right? Just recognizing this is their stuff. They're pouty little kids. They're holding their suitcase. I'm in my sphere. And coming back to your why. So we are going to work on that right now. And I am going to get out of that and come into our worksheet. So I don't know if any of you happen to see the worksheet or downloaded the worksheet. And if you didn't, it's okay. If you happen to have anything to write with, you can write with like on a journal and a paper, or you can just do it in your mind if you don't. And if anybody needs to go grab a pen or pencil or some writing material, let me know. And then we can kind of wait for a second. And I noticed that we're going a little bit over on time, and I want to check in with everybody. How is everybody for our time? I'd say giving us another 15 minutes, 15-ish. Everybody's okay. And if you need to log off, then you're more than welcome to do so. And I'll be sending out follow-up emails for this too, talking about any next steps and anything else. So, okay. All right. So as we are, can everybody see my screen, or do I need to make it a little bigger? Are we all good here? If I need to make it bigger, let me know. Otherwise, I need to make it bigger for myself. Okay. All right. So this is going to be, we're going to begin to create a boundary today, ladies. That's what we're here for. So what is one boundary I would love to create that would improve my life? One boundary I'd love to create that would improve my life. You can go small if you want to start, or you can go big. Okay.
Not oversharing.
Perfect. Perfect. So we're going to take this time, and I'm going to call on you guys, whoever wants to share at the end, to feel free to do that. For now, we're going to just take this time personally to write or to think about, and we're going to get through these questions, and then we can share. All right. And so if you have your boundary, we're going to go to the next part of that. What would improve if I created this boundary for myself? What in my life would improve? Situationally or emotionally. And if you're ready to move on, you can always come back to this. What thoughts and feelings prevent me from speaking up? What do I tell myself? It's easier if I don't, unless I'm in an argument. Maybe I won't feel listened to anyway, so why even bother? What is that fleeting thought that comes in? And if you can't get to it today, that's okay. You can play with this idea through the week. What feelings prevent me from speaking up? And how do I behave and feel when I'm afraid to speak up? How is this affecting my life when I can't speak up for myself? Do I shut down? Do I feel anxious? Do I avoid? Do I go with the flow? Do I feel resentful? Do I feel frustrated? Next one, what is my big why to creating the boundary? Why is this important to me? Why is this important? What would this mean for my life? What would improve? How would I feel about myself? If you're ready for the next one, who do I need to become in order to stay committed to my boundaries? Who do I need to become? Somebody who believes in myself more, stronger, more confident, more self-compassionate, more brave, more outgoing. Who do I need to become? And we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. You can expand on who you want to become and even create your avatar. In another time, when you have more time and space with yourself, we're going to create our boundary, though. We're going to create our boundary. So we're going to use what I call observations, feelings, needs, and requests. Okay. And this was designed by an incredible workshop leader facilitator, this man who created nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg. He leads workshops all over the world, and he bridges nations together just from this process alone, which is pretty cool. So observation. So when we're creating our boundary, we are going to come from an observatory place. No shaming and no blaming, no you never, no you always, trying to refrain from you, because when we are attacking, blaming, or shaming, nobody's going to listen. And it's going to end up in an argument, especially with those who are a little bit harder to please. So the less you we can say and the more I is going to be a lot better. So what is the boundary? Is it more time for yourself? Is it hopping off the phone sooner? Is it, um, what boundary would you like to create? What is the situation you would like to see resolved or changed? Okay, and if you need help with this, I can walk through this with you. What feeling? What feeling would I have? Or excuse me, what feeling comes up when this around this boundary when it's not met? So when the dishes aren't done, I feel frustrated. Okay. When I'm not being listened to, when you're on your phone as I'm talking, sometimes we will have to use you, but again, there's no blaming, and that's more from the observatory perspective, you know, because that is the facts. So we're not putting in our opinions to the situation, it's just observing it as it is, which is not easy. And I still need practice at this, but observing it, okay? So when I'm being called names, when I'm ignored, I feel lonely, I feel hurt, I feel frustrated, I feel tired, trying to tap into the feeling. Okay. What is your need? What do you have a need for? In other words, what's your desire? And we're going to get as specific as we can. So, an example of, you know, something that would be a little vague or hard to identify or hard to meet would be, I need to be cared for. Okay. Well, if you're stating this to somebody, they may not know what cared for means. So let's get specific. What does cared for mean? When I'm having a hard day, I'd like you to be able to ask if there's anything I need, or if I need help around the house. What is your direct need? What do you have a need for? More affection, compliment, affirmation, snuggles. And now request when you're ready. And we're going to phrase this in, are you willing? Are you willing to? What is the need you have? Are you willing to have more quality time with me on Mondays and Fridays? Okay, so we're going to get as specific as we can. Are you willing to, you know, respect when I need to jump off the phone early? Are you willing to refrain from telling me your life story when I only have 5 minutes? Are you willing to ask me more about my life or compliment me more? Or it might be something you don't want, right? Are you willing to refrain? I like that one. Refrain from anything that's, you know, putting me down, or criticism, or telling me that I'm lazy. Maybe we need to get specific. What is it? Are you willing to refrain from, you know, leaving the dishes in the sink? Are you willing to clean up after yourself after I've cooked dinner? Okay. All right. So, ladies, I would love to know, how do we feel about this worksheet? Do we feel like we're all finished? Can I get a thumbs up if you guys are all done? Ooh, I see Amanda. I'm gonna give us about 1 more minute here. Let's see, I wasn't able to see everybody, so anybody else? Yeah, we're getting there. And if you're like me, you're probably thinking, wait, I have a million boundaries I want to create right now, which is all which is all great. And you can come back to this worksheet at any given time and create as many boundaries as you'd like. Okay. So for the sake of time, ladies, would anybody like to share their boundary? And we're going to allow ourselves to stay on topic with what boundary you want to create. And I would love to hear it stated out loud if you're comfortable in observations, feelings, needs, and requests. Okay, so who is brave enough to share their boundary? And if not, that's totally okay. And you can just come off mute if you'd like to share. Okay, Jennifer?
Yeah. I'm trying to word it right where
Okay,
it's not going to be seen as like offensive because I
okay,
got in an argument already about it.
okay. So what was the situation?
It's concerning finances
Mhm.
and with my husband.
Okay,
Okay, because uh, just a really quick background, he's kind of focused on the small everyday stuff, and I'm focused on the large stuff.
okay.
So, anyways,
What
okay,
would
I
you,
so
well, oh, go
observation,
ahead.
go
Yeah, go ahead.
observation. So
Mhm.
that's like stating,
What does he do that really frustrates you?
well, there was a direct situation that happened. Um,
Okay,
I noticed that you ignored my request to pay for Savannah's tuition, or it wasn't ignored. It was more, I noticed that you refused my request to pay Savannah's tuition, but doesn't sound good. So I can't word it that way.
what about Savannah's tuition wasn't paid for? Would that be, or
No,
does that not necessarily?
I
Okay,
had to pay for it. He needs to pay me
okay,
half. Yeah.
okay. So when I wasn't paid for half of the tuition, when I wasn't reimbursed,
Yes, that
okay,
sounds good. When I wasn't
does
reimbursed.
that sound
Okay.
okay to you? When I wasn't
Yes, it sounds good.
reimbursed for her
Mhm.
education, for her tuition, how did it make you feel?
Very upset and angry.
Upset
Like
and
I felt,
angry.
yeah.
Yeah, anything else?
Uh, that it wasn't fair. That's how it felt.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I think upset, angry, it didn't feel fair. Didn't feel fair.
Okay.
And what did you have a need for? What would you have preferred instead? And I know this
That,
seems like,
yeah.
you know, like it's a no-brainer, but
It's not because of, I mean, he
yeah,
has his own points about the smaller stuff that he wants me to pay, which I don't mind paying, but I have some deadlines with these and they're large amounts, you know.
okay. So what would you have preferred instead?
Um, that he signed the credit card authorization so they can charge his account,
Okay.
and because he's more cash poor and this way it can go on the card, this is an opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you
that's a,
so you preferred him to sign the credit card authorization by the
because
time
we're
that
both
was
right,
needed.
right, because we're both cash poor at this time, and he needs to put on his credit card because I can't
Okay.
use it on mine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So kind of coming from the beginning, um, when the tuition, when half of the tuition wasn't paid, you felt, what did you say you felt again? Sorry, frustrated, and it didn't
yeah,
feel fair, and you have a need for him to sign the credit card statement. And so then you're going to ask, are you willing? So it could be like the next time her tuition is due, next
it,
quarter, next semester,
uh,
are you willing to go ahead and do that without being reminded? Or can you create a calendar event so that you can remember?
Well, he was going to, because they would not accept Discover, he was going to pay for my acupuncture as reimbursement instead of paying me, say, cash or whatever with his credit card.
And did that feel
Yeah.
fair to you?
That felt fair, but he didn't want
Okay.
to do it.
Mm,
So, and it's due on the 4th. Yeah. So,
I know this feels a little bit deeper, and this could also be something we work on. Jennifer's in our My Boundary program currently, so
yeah.
maybe this is something we can work on tomorrow in this, so we
Sure.
can go
Yeah.
a few layers deep and see
Yes.
what we can work out for this.
Mhm.
Because I would love to have you have a little bit more resolve around it. And maybe in the meantime, you can think of, directly what you would want from him in the future. Because we know what's not working, and it's easy to
Right.
focus on what's not working, what they're doing, what they're not doing, but to really get clear on like what is it that would be helpful in the future, and getting specific. So we can work on that more tomorrow if you want.
Okay.
Okay. How does that feel?
Sure. I did have a
Okay.
similar situation really quick that happened, and it got resolved because I showed him like the amounts and how much I was spending. So I might do that again, something to
Okay.
that effect. I just don't know how stubborn he's going to be. Yeah.
I know it's never easy, and for the sake of time, and I do
Oh,
want
no,
to hear
that's
from
fine.
others, and
Yeah.
I want to, we can kind of go into this a little deeper as well with more time. I think would be good. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to share about a boundary they have, or
I have a boundary.
yeah, Angela?
My boundary is my husband asking him to use a different tone. Like tone is everything. If you say sorry, or if you say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," like there's
Mhm.
a big difference in when he just says, "Oh, sorry." Like,
Okay.
I anything like that. So I wrote down, are you like, um would you like to say that in a different tone? And this is actually something that I've seen used before. Like, would you like to re-say that? Because if we don't
I like that.
get the issue resolved, it just causes more issues. Um, so I put that, and then like, are you willing to validate and comfort me? But really the tone is a big one. Are you willing to be patient with me?
Yeah, I love that. And sometimes with men, we do have to get specific. So, um, what, like, maybe you could give him, for fun, you could give him an example of a tone that you really like that he uses. Like, and maybe it could be the next time he uses a tone you really like. I love that tone, babe. I really love when you talk to me in that way, and they need encouragement and all of that. But so that way he has a reference of, oh, that's the tone she wants me to use. And maybe, or a demonstration of like when you're in a higher pitch and responding to me in a higher pitch, that feels better for me. I really love that. It allows me to feel more comfortable when we're talking.
Yes, yes, I know positive reinforcement. That's something we're really, really focusing on. Like compliments. I love how patient you're being. Like, to me, and then even when he takes accountability, oh, I find it sexy, I find it attractive. It's like, oh, you're making me so happy. Like,
Mhm.
it's rewarding for him to do it, and I want to feel rewarded. So, you know, it is like getting a gold star. Like, it really is. It works.
Yeah, it does. And men love it. Men, and we don't do it enough with them, and they really do. There's something to be said. I mean, we all need validation, right? We all need
Yes.
support and encouragement, not just men, but women as well. but it will go a long way. And especially once they know what you're wanting more of, we're always saying you're never doing this. You're always doing that. We're always criticizing, but, complimenting. I love when you talk to me in that tone. I love when you responded there. I love when you gave me attention 5 minutes ago. Oh, I love sitting next to you on the couch after you've gotten off work. Oh, I love this quality time we're having. Mm, you know? So, yeah, I love that, Angela. So, I want to move forward because I want to be somewhat conscious of our time. And I hope that all of you have enjoyed creating a boundary and have enjoyed being able to get a little bit of understanding around some of these steps that are really, really valuable, that I found really helpful, that I teach my clients on how to create boundaries. So how do you, how do you all feel at this point around what you have gained? Do you feel that it's been helpful today to some degree?
Definitely,
Yeah.
Jennifer. Thank you
Oh,
so
you're
much.
welcome. So, I want to just take another minute and thank you guys for showing up. And this boundary work is so amazing, so important, and it really is the keys to happiness. And what I have discovered and created is that through a tried and true practice, so today you got a taste of what it is like to kind of go through the emotional regulation, or at least a taste of that, looking at the root cause of where some of these issues come from, how to overcome them, how to create our boundary. And so what I've created is a 6-week program to help you actually navigate this in a really beautiful setting, in a very supportive setting. So you don't have to do this alone. And I know for a lot of us, if you're like me, I get really excited about workshops, and I'm like after Tony Robbins, I was like, yes, life is going to
Mhm,
change. And then a week later, I'm like, okay, back to the old
mhm.
routine. We're creatures of habit, ladies. We are creatures of habit, and it's easy to go back into what's comfortable and familiar. And the way that I find to create that momentum is to actually have a system in place, and that's for anything. And to have a tried and true process in place where you guys get to learn emotional regulation tools. So I will be teaching you emotional regulation tools that are a little bit deeper than just basic energy work. And I have a handful of tools that I bring in to help you feel a lot more calm when you're doing it. It's one thing to create a boundary; it's another thing to actually pick up the phone and have a conversation over there. So, being able to do it in a way that feels really calming and less frantic. And these tools are just tools for life in general as well. And then having a tried and true communication style. And then once we create our boundary, to be able to practice that in a really supportive setting, in a group setting, in a group container, where you guys get that opportunity to role play. Like, where else can you do that, right? Most of the time we're winging it. And to be able to sit in a group container and bounce off of, really safe women, right? Where we're listening to each other, we're validating, and then we're going to have opportunities to kind of show up as how that person may or may not show up, and tapping in. And when we have the tools, it becomes a lot easier. So we get to learn how to speak up, learn how to master our voice, learn how to create more happiness, ask for what we want, and declare what is working and what's not working. So in this 6-week group container, it's more of a boundary activation, and it's going to be going through all of the tools that I've taught you guys today, but into much depth. And I'm going to be starting this up. I am currently running my current boundary program, which Jen is in, and I'm grateful that she decided to join this workshop as well. And in about 2 weeks, I'm going to be starting up the next boundary program. So this is just a 6-week program. It's going to look like 1 hour a week where we hop on a call like this together for an hour. You are going to get recorded sessions. So our sessions are going to be recorded, and so are the processes. You're going to get worksheets every single week, more like home play, where you get to practice these things at home. You get to have the recorded sessions at your disposal, so you can come back, listen, practice any of the tools that we did when it's convenient for you. Right. So typically I run my group rate at $700 for a 6-week program, but I am offering it to you ladies today for 600. And I'm also offering you guys for the next 24 hours. This is my $600 rate. I also have payment plans. So if you're needing to jump into it and you feel like I'm not ready to do the pay in full, then I offer payment plans. And so that would look like 2 payments of $325 split into 2 3-week periods. Right. And I look forward to seeing you ladies, feel into if this feels like the right fit for you. If you feel like creating boundaries would change everything for you, if you feel like mastering, more confidence and having even just emotional regulation tools would make a difference for you in your life and imagining what is possible. And I know for me, sometimes as women, it's not easy to say yes to ourselves when we're used to putting everybody else first. And I want to just give you guys permission to softly lean into saying yes to yourself if this feels like something you want to do. Okay. And so with that, I am going to go ahead. I'm going to put in the chat. Give me 1 second here. I am going to put my Calendly link in the chat, seeing if it's still in there. For any of you guys wanting to book a discovery call, perfect. I have saved some room on my calendar over the next 2 hours. So if any of you ladies want to jump on a discovery call, it's usually about 20 minutes where we're going to look at some of your challenges, where you're at personally, so I can get a really personalized idea of what challenges you're facing around boundaries and speaking up, what you want for yourself, what would change, what are the opportunities that you could bring in, what in your life would change if you had boundaries that you could work on a regular basis in a safe container. Okay. And I always love to do this interview process first to make sure it's a great fit for everybody, make sure that we're in the right container. And if you're interested in more than just boundary work and you're needing a more of a one-on-one approach, I offer my one-on-one coaching calls as well. So that looks like, oh, no problem, Angela. Thank you so much, sweetie. It was great to see you. Thank you. All right, sweetie, take care. I have my one-on-one packages that look like a 6-week 6-week private coaching where you get one-on-one coaching calls together for 6 week or a 3-month package. And those prices look a little bit different, and we can definitely chat about those. So typically my 3-month program is a $2,400 program, and my 6-week program is a $1,200 program. And those are for one-on-one guided sessions where you get personalized support and all of the tools to be focused on whatever area of life you wish, whether it's boundaries, whether it's work, whether it's love, whether it's relationships, communication. There's pretty much anything but business strategy I can coach on. And I specifically help highly sensitive, overwhelmed women. That's my specialty, to feel more calm, feel more confident, feel braver, and to begin to take action towards living a life that they want. All right. So if that sounds good to you guys, feel free to reach out. We're all on Facebook together, so you can reach out, send me a message. And again, my group coaching is starting in 2 weeks. So if this sounds like something you guys want to jump into, I would love to have you. Jennifer, if you want to repeat it, you're welcome to. We've got 2 more weeks together. And to anyone else who may or may not benefit from this, you can feel free to share my link with them as well. And yeah, so with that, ladies, I just want to thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for showing up bravely and in your authenticity. And yeah, and I hope that you have gained some tools today.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're so welcome, Amanda. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jennifer.
you.
You're welcome,
Thank you.
ladies. Have a good
Bye.
evening
I
and a good
Thank you
morning.
so much.
I had to I
Mm.
had to go to acupuncture before, so I had to have the camera off. By the way,
Oh,
I
no
forgot I had
problem, sweetie.
it. Okay, all
All
right,
right.
thanks.
Talk to you soon. Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
Bye-bye.
bye.